A new skill I've been honing.
Hey, welcome back ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and deep in the sand canon shoutouts that we caught in Dune Prophecy Season 1, Episode 1, The Hidden Hand. So the Dune universe is back in a big way with the debut of the first episode of this prequel series, Dune Prophecy. In true Dune form, it is a show about betrayals, intergalactic statecraft, and savvy space nuns aiming to control the entire future of the galaxy. And by the way, if you're scratching your heads as to how this show connects to the classic first 1965 book by Frank Herbert or the recent Denis Villeneuve movies, it's important to remember this line from the Reverend Mother in the first Dune film.
But our plans are measured in centuries.
And before we begin, I got a small disclaimer. Pronouncing Dune words is hard, but the man himself, Frank Herbert, said in 1979, you can, of course, pronounce the words in Dune any way you wish. So, maybe go kind of easy on me in the comments, okay?
Home of House Harkonnen.
The Harkonnens.
Alright, so to understand this show, you've got to first know that this series is mostly focused on the early days of the Bene Gesserit sisterhood, even though nobody at this point calls it the Bene Gesserit, yet.
The Bene and the Gesserits?
The Bene Gesserit are a matriarchal sect in the Dune universe, and in this show, we're seeing that sisterhood at roughly the beginning of their rise to power. As the main character, Valia Harkonnen, tells us in a voiceover, the sisterhood was set up to work as truth-sayers assigned to the great houses to help them sift truth from lies.
Oh, okay, so it seems like the Bene and the Gesserits are kind of like the Jedi in Dune, but their only superpowers are knowing when people are lying and that cool sisterhood mind trick.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Well, that cool sisterhood mind trick would be the voice, the power to compel people to do something against their will, which, in Dune, seems to be used often to convince people to get stabby. A lot. Within the first 15 minutes of this episode, we see Valia Harkonnen as the first Sisterhood member who wields the voice. And this moment is a perfect microcosm for the entirety of Dune Prophecy. This is a show that's going to reveal certain Dune origins, just not the way you think. By the way, Doug, why is there a barber pole outside?
Oh, I thought we could make some extra scratch by cutting hair.
That's not gonna work. We're a video store.
Hey, I saw the pole outside. Do you guys cut hair now?
Sure. Yeah, there you go. Is that better? Yeah. There, is that better?
Wow, that was amazing. Much better than my old razor.
Yeah, man, I mean, you gotta upgrade sometimes. I used this same manual razor since I was 17 years old, but then I upgraded to the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver by Manscaped, the sponsor of this video.
Manscaped? The global men's lifestyle brand that sets the bar higher in men's grooming standards?
That's right, Manscaped, the global men's lifestyle brand that sets the bar higher in men's grooming standards. You guys know that we all have somebody in our lives who's a little scruffy and hard to shop for, but the Chairman Pro here is a can't-miss gift. It features a 360-degree contouring head and comes with two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. You can use the skin-safe stubble attachment, which comes with two separate combs depending on the length of stubble that you want, 1 to 2 days or 3 to 5. Or it's extremely easy to swap out to the 4-foil blade for a much closer shave. Both blades are designed to help reduce razor burn and irritation, so your skin feels smooth and comfortable after every shave. And with this Flex Adjust technology, the blades and head flex and adjust to the contours of your face and neck, giving you a more precise and comfortable shave. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can use it in the shower, making your grooming routine easier and cleaner. Gentlemen, the Chairman Pro is powerful enough to tackle up to 5 days of growth, perfect for if you're shaving every day or if you're just tidying up a few key areas. It even has a travel lock, an LED spotlight, and the charge is good for up to 75 minutes, in case you take a really, really long time to shave. So, if you're looking to elevate your grooming routine, you gotta try the Chairman Pro by Manscaped. Use the promo code ScreenCrush to get 20% off your order plus free shipping. That's 20% off plus free international shipping with promo code ScreenCrush at manscaped.com. Now back to what I was saying. After a protracted prologue, the show makes it clear that the present tense of this show is 10,148 years before the birth of Paul Atreides, aka Timothée Chalamet from the recent movies. Now, this might confuse some of you because the first Dune movie happened in the year 10,191, 10,000 years in our future. So you might be wondering, if this show takes place 10,000 years before that, why isn't it just taking place right now? Well, that's because the 10,191 in Dune Part 1 is set in 10,191 AG, which means after Guild, which specifically refers to the Spacing Guild, which rose up after the Butlerian Jihad.
The Butlers had a holy war? Was it the Butler all along?
Or did the butler do it?
No.
Actually, the Butlerian Jihad refers to humankind's revolt against thinking machines, which is an AI war that happens in the backstory of all of Dune. In the opening moments of Dune Prophecy's first episode, we see what the AI war looked like firsthand.
When humans rose up against the thinking machines that had enslaved enslaved them.
Now, to be clear, a massive war between humans and killer AI is not the focus of any of the 6 Frank Herbert Dune novels, but the revolt against AI and the outlawing of thinking machines is what allowed Herbert to set the future world of Dune in a kind of feudal world without tons of automation. You see, Dune feels kind of old-timey because in the backstory of Dune, they got rid of all the AI and robots, which is why they still use like knives and force fields. Now, clearly there are still machines in Dune.
Yeah, I mean, what's a thinking machine anyways?
We too are machines, just machines of a different type.
Well, the question of what kinds of machines are outlawed comes up much later in this episode, when a kid releases a kind of AI toy in the royal court. Because we're told this is only a few decades after the end of the Butlerian Jihad, everybody is pretty touchy about just how much computing in AI is allowed. Relevantly, Mother Dorothea is very much an anti-AI zealot, while sisters Tula and Velia are more lenient on AI, which becomes a bigger deal later in the series. The Sisterhood's homeworld is on the planet of Wallach 9, which is straight from classic Dune lore. However, in the prequel novels, Sisterhood of Dune and Mentats of Dune, there were rival factions of sisters, with those who followed Valia on Wallach 9 and those who followed Dorothea on Salus Secundus. Here, the show reconciles that canon to just make both factions kind of side by side on Wallach 9. And by the way, although the show says it's based on the novel Sisterhood of Dune by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert, the reality is much of the action comes from Mentats of Dune, which was part of a 3-part series called the Schools of Dune Trilogy, published between 2012 and 2016. And I want to let you guys know that in honor of Dune Prophecy, our Spice Crispy shirt has just returned to our merch store. This is one of our all-time bestsellers, and I love it so much. Notice how it reads here, "The spice must flow." We also have a brand new ScreenCrush collection with items like Nerd, Never-Ending Rewatching Disorder, That's Your Mom, like the THX logo, and our Rated SC for breakdowns, analysis, Easter eggs, and your mom. We love designing merch for you guys, and shopping our merch store is the best way to support our channel. And if you really like these new designs, we're about to add a ton more. So subscribe now to our merch store newsletter so you get early access to our new holiday products and deals. Now back to what I was saying. After Valia uses the voice to take out Dorothea, she sneakily pockets the breeding index. This object is essentially the one Easter egg that creates the rest of the Dune saga more broadly. By the time Paul Atreides is around, the Sisterhood's plan of breeding superior leaders results in what they think is the master plan, the creation of the Quitsitz Haderach, a super being.
For thousands of years, we've been carefully crossing bloodlines to bring forth one.
So basically, without that handy breeding index, Paul wouldn't be born at all, meaning that Valia Harkonnen was both directly and indirectly responsible for Paul's birth. Directly because her saving the breeding program results in Paul, and indirectly because she is part of the Harkonnen family, which Paul hails from on his mother's side. Right after the death of the episode, Valia says,
"I knew then the name Valia Harkonnen would forever be damned to the wrong side of history."
But Valia also seems to hate her own family, because when House Harkonnen requests a truthsayer, she denies them the request.
Yes, to House Varric. Kamali will have to wait. And you can tell House Harkonnen no.
Now this is relevant because it seems to start a tradition in which House Harkonnen's relationship with the Bene Gesserit is rocky, even in the time of the movies and the first 3 Frank Herbert novels. You might have also noticed that at the start of the series, when Valia is on her home planet before she goes to join the Sisterhood, it's not the planet Gadi Prime. That's because, at this point, Lankavale is a place where many people from House Harkonnen dwell. In fact, this planet's chief export, at this point in time, is whale fur, which is why, much later in the episode, in the royal court of House Carino, there is a guy named Baron Harkonnen trying to sell whale fur to the Emperor.
Whale fur. The profit is there. It's simple mathematics, really.
I'm sure you're right, Baron Harkonnen. Let me think about it.
Yeah, when's the Baron gonna shave his head and turn into Luthen from Andor?
Well, that is not the same Baron Harkonnen. This is from like 10,000 years earlier.
So in 10,000 years, all the Harkonnens are gonna shave their heads, but not now.
Well, and speaking of things that might not match up with your memory of the newer Dune films, when the action cuts to Seleucus Secundus, homeworld of the Imperial House, this might not look like the way you remembered Seleucus Secundus. In Dune Prophecy, the planet looks like this.
Oh my God! What is that?
But 10,000 years later, in Dune Part 1, Seleucus Secundus looks like this. So why is Seleucus Secundus homeworld of the Imperial House in Prophecy and the Imperial Army planet in Dune? Well, over time, House Carino, the ruling house, moves from Seleucus Secundus to the planet Catane. Once we're with House Carino, we quickly meet Princess Yanez, who is doing some shield practice with her swordmaster Kieran Atreides. So this scene is meant to replicate the famous shield practice scene from the original Dune novel, in which Gurney reminds Paul how to fight with blades that can penetrate personal force fields if you move through them slowly enough. This scene is a clear evocation of the 2020 2021 version of this scene, but you can always think of Patrick Stewart and Kyle MacLachlan if you want to. The last name Atreides is obviously an easy one to catch. Kieran is clearly a distant ancestor of Duke Leto II Atreides and Paul Atreides, and overall, the royal house we're getting to know here, specifically Princess Yanez, her brother Constantine, and Emperor Jevakino and Empress Natalia, are all ancestors of the same ruling house that's in charge of the known universe 10,000 years later. Christopher Walken and Florence Pugh in Dune Part 2, that's House Carino, and the origins of their reign are being explored right here in this show. The short explanation of what's happening in the Carino part of the show is that Princess Yanez is being betrothed to Pruitt Ritchie's, who is a young boy and heir to the power of House Ritchie's. And if you've not heard of House Ritchie's, don't worry, it's not one of the big famous houses like Carino or Atreides. I'm not even pronouncing their name right.
You are not serious people.
But what the show is doing is showing us the early days of how the Imperium had other houses take over spice production on Arrakis. The meeting between the current emperor and the head of the House Ritchie's is the first time we hear mention of Arrakis, which is the formal name of the planet Dune. The reason the emperor and everybody else is interested in Arrakis is because that's where spice comes from, which is the only substance that enables the guild navigators to guide spaceships across the stars. But as Virginia Madsen's Princess Irulan told us in 1984,
the spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe.
So, just like in the state of affairs 10,000 years later, the Imperium needs spice production to be stable to foster interstellar commerce and travel, which is why the leader of House Ritchie says,
and spice will flow.
Now this is a fun Easter egg because the phrase, the spice must flow, is often associated with Dune, even though that exact phrase does not come from the original novel. Instead, the first time the phrase, the spice must flow, was spoken exactly like that was in the prologue to the 1984 movie in which Kyle MacLachlan did an uncredited voiceover as a Spacing Guild official saying,
the spice must flow.
And if you're looking for even more fun Easter eggs, we get a scene later during the engagement party in which Constantine is playing the baliset, the famous instrument later favored by Gurney Halleck.
My hand is caked in sand.
Now, eventually, this first episode of Dune Prophecy ends up revolving around a mystery box character who, interestingly, is not from any of the existing books, and for now, seems to be unique to the TV show's continuity. This character is Desmond Hart, played by Travis Fimmel, who you might remember from Vikings, or another HBO sci-fi show, Raised by Wolves. Now, we're told Desmond Hart is a soldier for House Carino, who has just returned from Arrakis. And with the arrival of Desmond Hart, the show's title starts to become a little clearer. Somehow, Desmond Hart survived a direct attack from a sandworm, also known as the Shai Hulud. But more importantly, the member of the Sisterhood assigned to the Emperor, Sister Kasha, has a trippy vision of Yanez getting swallowed by a sandworm, and some ominous figure with blue eyes mocking her in the darkness. This moment is very similar to the visions that Mother Rakella had on her deathbed at the beginning of the episode, in which a giant sandworm consumed all of the Sisterhood. The sisters call this vision the dreaded prophecy, the Tyran Arafel, or just Arafel for short. And basically, it's the fear that they'll all be destroyed by the holy judgment of a tyrant. But who is this tyrant? Now, the quick answer would seem to be Paul Atreides, since, in the future, Paul will punish the Bene Gesserit for their role in manipulating all of history, and his one family specifically. But the giant sandworm thing kind of suggests that this whole tyrant holy judgment thing actually refers to Paul's son Leto II, who, by the fourth book, God Emperor Dune, becomes a human sandworm hybrid, who rules the universe as a tyrant and makes things very difficult for the Bene Gesserit.
This is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy!
And Frank Herbert also alluded to something called the Great Enemy, and in the sequel books like Sandworms of Dune, that ultimate evil was totally revealed to be a horrible AI thing called Ominous. So maybe the Sisterhood are having bad dreams about that thing too. And that's a cool thing about this show. The actual prophecy in Dune Prophecy remains a mystery. So the episode ends as we learn that in addition to being able to stab little robot lizards, Desmond Hart somehow has the power to kill people long distance with his mind by burning their flesh. After the royal betrothal party, he manages to do this to both Sister Kasha and the 9-year-old kid, Pruitt Ritchie's. How Desmond Hart got this power and what it has to do with him being swallowed by a sandworm is the question that the rest of the show now has to answer.
Yeah, or maybe this TV show isn't a mystery box to be solved, but rather a reality to be experienced.
The sleeper must awaken.
Well guys, if we slept on any big references or Easter eggs in the first episode of Dune Prophecy, let us know in the comments. Also, a huge shout out to Ryan Britt, the writer of this video. You can find his social links below. And you can also find me on X, Threads, or Blue Sky. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.